Hello, Brad here, just to say we're super proud that the Friday 5pm podcast is sponsored by the Malt Miller, the UK's best home brew store.
We use the Malt Miller for all of our homebrew experiments, as well as tapping them up for advice and binging on their awesome YouTube channel all the time.
That's why whenever we release a homebrew video, we put a recipe kit live on the Malt Miller, so you can brew with the exact same amazing ingredients that we did. The same ingredients used by pro brewers.
So alongside the Malt Miller's nitro-flushed hops, cold-stored yeast and milled-to-order malts, you can pick up recipe kits for our 5 Points Best Bitter, Russian River West Coast IPA, and now the fastest beer in the world, a hazy session IPA that goes from grain to glass in less than 48 hours.
Sign up to their newsletter at tinyurl.com/Malt Miller to get 5% off your first order. With the Malt Miller's amazing customer service and Johnny's 48-hour recipe, you could order the ingredients on a Monday and be drinking the beer by the weekend.
Speaking of which, it's Friday.
It's 5pm.
So enjoy this week's Friday 5pm podcast. Hey everyone, just a quick note about this week's podcast. I don't know whether I was distracted by missing Brad so much, but at the very start, for the first couple of minutes, there is a bit of clipping on my audio for this episode, but I do clock the blinking red light eventually and the audio improves. So please stick with it, and humblest apologies to everyone out there. Enjoy the episode. It's Friday, it's 5pm, and yes it is we, despite the fact that Brad is off swanning and sunning himself in Barcelona, are here to help you wind down into the weekend and add some bitterness to that first Friday beer. Now this week I am joined by one of Belgium's premier beer writers, although having said that, I'm not sure that Belgian is quite the right description because he is in fact Irish, but I am joined this week by legendary beer writer Eoghan Walsh.
Hello.
Thank you so much for stepping into Brad's giant diversionary shoes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have any anecdotes about minor celebrities. I've never bought a boat off of a geezer down by the river, and my shirt is just a boring shade of navy. So I'll do my best.
But you do have a Patagonia fluffy gilet on, so that is quite bad. And it's orange.
It's bloody freezing. I just checked the thermostat. It's 17 degrees. Inside.
It's a long way from freezing, Eoghan.
Yeah, I know, but I'm a precious animal, when it comes to the temperature. I know you're sitting in the ice box that is your
Hey, no,
studio.
I'm a balmy 19. Don't you worry about it. I've been warming this sucker up all day.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for stepping in. So a couple of reasons why I've chosen Eoghan, and one is because he DM'd me and said, "Please, can I be on it?"
Shameless, utterly shameless.
Yes, indeed. But I also enjoyed the irony that I could get a Belgian beer writer on after a video in which a very famous Belgian beer came bottom of a blind taste test. Have you had Jupiler low alcohol?
What do you think?
I genuinely don't know.
Now you said that a very famous Belgian beer. Now it is the 0% equivalent.
Right.
So,
sorry, I was not precise enough.
Standard Jupiler is bad. It's bad. It's not good. But I haven't had the 0% version. I have a can of, because I watched the video and on my way home via the shops, I thought I'd pick up a low alcohol beer, but I got a Stella. So we'll see if the same brewery makes two really terrible 0% beers.
Yeah. What are your views on Stella versus Jupiler? Are they the same beer? Are they worse beers?
I don't really drink enough, but I will say, anyone who comes to Belgium will know that Jupiler is just totally dominant. You get Jupiler everywhere. It's the standard beer. But the place that I would call my local downtown in Brussels, they serve Stella, and they do it in this small 25 centiliter glasses, and it's not it's cold and it's fresh and it's not bad. And if I don't have a lot of money in my wallet, I usually go for that because it's only about €1.50 or €2.
Well, it did. So Stella was in my original blind taste test, and it did pretty well. I think it came second, maybe, to Heineken. I was surprised by how good it was, which is the joy of these blind taste tests, because there's beers that I would probably just instinctively dismiss in my head before I even drink them.
Yeah, of course.
And suddenly you're like, well, actually, Stella is significantly better than other beers that we thought were maybe good, like Estrella or something like that.
Yeah. But normally you get to drink nice beers. That's the thing. I mean, this week I have to say you didn't look half as jolly as you did when you were doing the Belgian beer taste, when the Christmas beer tasting. I mean, it
And that
looked
was the
like a
third
bit of
video
a
of the day,
struggle.
that Belgian one. I don't know how I got through it.
Certainly less ruddy cheeked than you were that time.
Yes. That was. I mean, I think I held it together almost better than I did in the low alcohol. For some reason, I was slurring more in the low alcohol. I think Brad before we shoot, he often has a little livener, usually an Augustina Hellers that he brings from home. So he performs, I think, best with a tiny little buzz, and maybe I do as well.
Yeah, a little nerve settler.
Exactly that. Yeah, how's your Stella going? Stella Zero. What's it called even? Stella 00?
It's 0.0, yeah.
0.0.
It's low calorie. It's fine. It's quite metallic.
Oh, right. Okay.
But I mean, your palate is much more refined than mine, but it doesn't come across as egregiously bad. I don't know, what score did you give? You gave the Jupiler a 12, I think.
12. It smelled like apple juice. It had that much apple skin character to it. It was.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. There is a bit of that. There's a lot of metal. There's a lot of sugar. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah, that too. Actually, the sweetness, particularly of the German ones, really took me by surprise.
Yeah.
Like the Rothaus didn't have it, and that one did very well. But yeah, the Löwenbräu and the Kronbacher were very sweet.
Yeah. Do you want to get into the video? Because that was the thing that I remarked just watching you. Like, you'd think the Germans would be better at this. Like, they have a good reputation for.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I put so many in there, because I was like, we'll get a good gamut of like decent ones, so that I'm not just slagging off beers, and they're also fairly readily available here. And yeah, they really didn't do that well at all.
Yeah.
I think maybe low alcohol Weiss beer is more popular than low alcohol lager in Germany.
Maybe they're just resting on their laurels. They've been doing it for so long. They're just sort of coasting. They don't have to. I mean, the Mashgang one. I mean, you're never going to see a German brewer put Nelson Sauvin and Styrian Wolf hops in a low ABV beer. They would just think that would be a waste, I assume, of expensive hops.
Pretty much. But it wasn't. It was so much better than I thought it would have been. I'm glad I didn't read the can before either tasting it or before buying it. I didn't even look at the back of it. I was just like, I've heard Stoop's good, I'll buy that.
Yeah.
And it was stunning and very well balanced. I'd have had no idea that was Galaxy creating that citric character at all. And the oak chips was, I think I described it as soapy in the video, but
yeah,
as I sort of sat on that beer a bit longer, it became quite coconutty, really, which I think was coming from the oak. An absolutely bonkers beer. But before we dig into the comments or like the video deep, I'd love to hear what's your relationship with low alcohol beer, because a lot of beer writers, a lot of beer geeks just don't touch it. They're like, if I'm not drinking, I'm not having beer.
I kind of oscillate in that respect. December was a very alcoholic month for me, specifically the end of the month. I think it is for most of it. So I started the new year not drinking non-alcoholic beer, but there was a bottle of non-alcoholic cava at one of our New Year's family drinks. Now, I don't know if you know this, but I think Belgium is per capita the largest drinker of cava in the world.
Go on.
Yes. Love our fizzy Spanish wine. And it tasted like unfermented grape juice, fizzy grape juice.
Appetizer, yeah.
Yeah. I've never had appetizer, but I can imagine something similar to that. Yeah, like it was. Yeah, it wasn't festive, but no, it's interesting because I think like you guys see over in the UK, there's a lot of non-alcoholic beers coming out now, like a lot,
and a lot of money behind some of them as well.
A lot of money. Like, I mean, I'm drinking the Stella, Jupiler. All of the big brands have a low or non-alcoholic version. Like there was a non-alcoholic version of Schoof just came out before Christmas. Yeah, and I was disappointed because I wanted to get that in the shop, but they didn't have it.
Is it the low alcohol version of the Christmas Schoof or a low alcohol version of the normal Schoof?
No, just the regular 9%. So they've taken 9% of alcohol out, which is like I'd be really suspicious of that. Like I've had the
that lab tested.
I've had the Leffe 0.0, and that's not a good beer. That's not a good beer. What I generally, I mean, I don't know what your attitude is. I don't like going for the non-alcoholic versions of the existing brands. I'd much prefer go for something like Mashgang or Brussels Beer Project here, they have a line of non-alcoholic beers, which is something completely new.
Mhm.
You know, but then I was beer judging once in a competition a couple of years ago, and we did the non-alcoholic category. I think there was maybe 30. Most of them were.
Every beer judge is dreading getting that category when you walk in the room.
I mean, on the one hand, like you've judged as well, Johnny, you know this. You can get quite drunk depending on what category you've had, and you know, I've done mornings of judging where you're drinking quadruples, triples, maybe the odd, you know, imperial stout, and you know you're getting off the table at the end of the day, and you're barely able to stand up, and then you still have
the
to go
crackers aren't just for palate cleansers. It's like,
that's
come on,
it, yeah. You're sort of, and then
some of this up,
and then you've got to go and do all the social events at the end of the day, and you're just barely hanging on. And this was fine, but it was like you said, mostly under fermented, malty, metallic beers. But the one that won was like a Radler. So we picked like the least beery beer that was on, purely because it tasted of something. I think in the same way that the Mash Gang one kind of stood out because it tasted of something else. You know, it was hoppy in that respect. This one was like lemon juice. And we were like, oh, it's nice. It's like a Radler. Maybe it's a Radler. And friends of mine who work for a brewery in Brussels, they'd submitted their very innovative, you know, finely tuned, sour, salty, non-alcoholic beer. They absolutely killed me when they found out which beer won. They just looked at me like all of the beer credibility that I'd built up as, you know, this beer writer who's supposed to know his shit. As soon as they found out that I judged on that category, they were like, what are you doing? Like, what is this?
I mean,
this isn't a beer, this is lemonade.
Blind testing. You can say stupid stuff without ever realizing, but I'd also argue in your favor that it's not stupid. You know, that's what you actually tasted on the day, and it was the most delicious, least flawed
absolutely
thing.
And I mean, and then I look back and I was like, there was another like sourish beer and I fought its corner, but then when you're judging, you know this as well, you know, the table decides, and all the old fuddy-duddy Belgians who I was drinking with were like, nah, what is this? I don't like this is strange, this is different, I don't like it.
Do you have so when I judge, there's always, so we talked about the low alcohol category not being, you know, being the last thing that people want to have to judge. What are the categories in Belgium that people don't want to? Because in the UK, it's wit beers, wheat beers, probably milds, to be honest. Sort of the stuff that's designed to be session and often a little bit sweeter and less robust.
Well, I think wheat beers is a tricky one here as well, because when you're judging the wheat beer category, you're judging like 46 wheat beers.
Yeah, in Belgium it's a very different,
you know, and it's like, oh, another one, oh, this one tastes, and then it's like the one that wins is always Hugarden because it tastes the most wit beer of all the wit beers, you know. And triples is always a stealthy one because like there's a lot of them. Every brewery in Belgium brews a triple. Some of them are really good, but the really, really, really good ones rarely enter. So you're not going to be drinking a Westmalle in a blind tasting. Like Westmalle would never. They're better.
Monks don't need the validation. God's telling them
that's it. They're never going to be putting their beer in that. But the alcohol in it and the sweetness in it's just like you're just hanging for. Give me like a West Coast IPA category after this, you know, because you just want to like drink all the resin and get all of that, you know, cloves and banana and get it out of your mouth. But yeah, those are the ones I've always struggled with.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever judged a triple category, but it is a bit like a double IPA category. It's like everything's going to taste similar. It's going to be, you know, the tiniest of nuances to pick between them, unless they're horribly flawed. So it's kind of nice to be in a more broad
last year I judged the France Beer Challenge, and we can talk about other things other than my extensive beer judging experience, and it was French triples, and I feared for my life. Like I really like, because I mean France, no disrespect to any French people listening, I don't know what your listenership is like there. My experience with French beer is not good, and they were all adequate. And it's really nice when you can come out of a judging competition and say, do you know what, the beers, they were adequate. I didn't have anything repulsive this time. And I mean, you'll have done judging competitions where that's not the case. Yeah.
Very, very much not. The you never want to judge the IPA category in a Camera Beer Festival. Never, because it's demoralizing. Anyway, enough bitching about being a beer judge, which is a privilege, but also endless breweries. This week's video was, of course, the blind taste test of low alcohol lager, in which I tasted what I thought was going to be 19, but turned out to be 20. Somebody, not me, miscounted in the fridge. So yeah, things got even harder halfway through, where I realised that there were so many more to go. And Mash Gang blew me away. You know, it only got 1 point more than Rot House and Lucky Saint, which came second. I'm drinking a Lucky Saint right now. But you know, it was a remarkable beer with incredible flavour, coconut going on, big citric character from the Galaxy and the Nelson. And then, you know, the only reason it didn't score even higher was just a little bit of kind of dry hop powderiness, which was, I talk about it a lot on the channel. It really bugs me. I hate that kind of powdery finish that you can get on heavily dry hop beers. And it just had a hint of that. Probably wasn't even that heavily dry hopped. It was just that it was a low alcohol beer with a dry hop. But I said in the video before in our Big in 2023 that a lot of low alcohol beer is contract brewed and therefore quite variable in quality even within the same breweries. And I have to say, with Mash Gang, everything I've tried has been exceptional, and I'm not really sure I've had that. You know, like I thought Big Drop were great, and they came nearly bottom.
Yeah, because I mean, how surprised were you that they stood out so much? Because, like you said in the video, it can be really variable. Like it can be excellent, and then it can be dreck.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought, because I know what Mash Gang's kind of outlook is, it's like, let's make this exciting. And I thought it would stand out by a mile, but I also thought it would be significantly, in a blind taste test, I thought it would stand out with more flaws. I thought it would be exciting but flawed. But actually it was exciting and had the teeniest little niggle that, you know, knocked a point off of the palate. Sorry, the aftertaste. It's a brewing feat. And actually I got a message, as frequently happens after videos from breweries that are involved, going, just so you know, I got a message from Dave, the founder of Fierce Brew, up in Scotland, who I think maybe brew all of them unless they're a collaboration. Just sort of explaining that, you know, they brew it all. They're both A, super excited about the opportunities, but B, really in love with the recipes that they're brewing. And I think that maybe with a lot of low alcohol brands, that's not necessarily the case. Usually there's quite a bit of investment money behind it. It's an idea from somebody that used to like beer and it's gone like, hey, why aren't there any good low alcohol brands? And they've joined this giant cloud of other bang average low alcohol brands.
Yeah.
Not talking about anyone in particular, but it was really refreshing to see somebody, you know, really deep diving into this and seeing what's kind of possible.
Yeah, because their lager is sort of one of their more accessible. I don't know if that's the right word. One of their more normal beers.
Yeah,
like I had a look on what's for sale online and was like, oh, interesting.
Yes, there's some kids cereal inspired imperial stouts at low alcohol. The beer that we had in our Big in 2023 from them had about 9 different hops in. I think I'm not quite sure of the purpose of that, but it was a pretty good beer.
Yeah.
They are pushing things and doing lots of radical recipes. They've got a low alcohol mild has just come out with Boxcar. Just like they don't know how to say no. I think it's just like, and this and this and this, and as far as I can tell, they're smashing it each time. That said, I've only tried the more simple ones. I've not tried the kids cereal imperial stouts.
That's the next step, isn't it?
There could be a whole video in me already skeptical of just any kids cereal in beer, then doing a low alcohol one.
Talking of kids cereal, you had a tasting note during it. Shreddies in water. Now, Johnny, I eat my cereal with milk. Do you eat your cereal with water?
I grew up in a very poor house.
Yeah, I was just going to say, are you Scottish, like, or something?
Yeah, you have porridge with water. Yes, often beer tasting is evoking memories. Because nostalgia and aroma are very closely linked. That was not a memory. That was a fever dream. I've never put Shreddies in water. I guess I just meant, it tasted like Shreddies,
but
wet
like
Shreddies, but with none of the milk flavor.
Yeah.
I guess maybe semi-skimmed milk would have been a better thing to say, which is basically water anyway.
Yeah.
But thank you for picking up on that. When it's amazing the stuff that I say, and then in the edit, when I'm going back over it and over it, I'm like, that's a stupid thing to say. That's so stupid. But I can't get rid of it because I refer to it later or
Absolutely.
whatever it is. I need to stop referring to things later so that I have the option to go, you know what? Shreddies and water, not a tasting note anyone's going to really understand.
Well, I mean, you ran the gamut of flavors.
It was pretty wild. Baked beans, we think, is DMS now. Which I know is a sign of DMS in low quantities, but it was literally
Powerful.
like baked beans on toast. It was a big aroma of DMS in small quantities. So I don't know if that's possible or whether I don't really know. It could be a mix of certain aromas, so DMS plus sticky caramelly wort, which smells like the tomato sauce, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Unpleasant was the broad tasting note for those two beers. Did you see any comments that tickled you?
I did. Someone gave you some recommendations about how to format your spreadsheet. I didn't understand them. Johnny 909. There was some coding. I don't know what that was, but he said, "Yeah, have a look at that. That'll fix your spreadsheet. You'll be grand."
He gave me the code, so I'm going to copy that in for the next one. I get a lot of shade for my my Google Forms use. I am, you could probably tell, not good with numbers, spreadsheets, anything. I pay somebody to do my my accounts every January, which costs the goddamn earth because accountants are bastards. But I just cannot get my head around it. So yeah, I apologize for my.
Shout out to all the accountants listening.
Hey,
I love
beautiful.
I love my accountant.
I love mine too.
There was one, given the poor performance of the Germans, I thought was an interesting comment from Lucas Jäger. Good name.
I flagged that one as well, yeah.
Good name. It always blows my mind that those boring, normie-ass television commercial German lagers like Jäger and Kronbacher actually do quite well in your tastings. I love the tasting videos. Keep them coming. I mean, Germans just don't know how good they have it.
Yeah, 100%.
That's it.
That was exactly my response. You know, your was he boring, normie-ass television commercial German lagers are better than pretty much every other lager made in the UK.
Yeah.
And I think the Germans need to check their privilege and try drinking a goddamn Carling once in a while.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, they have it extraordinarily lucky. And it's also why craft beer took a little while to take off in Germany as well. Can't say the same for France. That must be the wine. But, yeah, I mean, we're going to Munich in 2 weeks with the channel to do some filming. And it's just been so exciting. Like, I'm literally just going to go to the Paulaner Brauhaus, the Hofbräu Brauhaus. We're going to go to the Schneiderweit. Like, we are not going to do any small craft modern stuff.
All the total normcore dad beers.
Yeah, exactly. All the stuff that most German beers would be like, ugh.
Yeah.
Go to the Augustina Keller, get that from Cask, you know?
Yeah, but then, you know, you're going to have to entertain me the next time I'm in London when I say I want to go to, you know, whatever.
I want to go drink Green King IPA.
Exactly.
I mean, it is remarkable. Yeah, we have to check our privilege when it comes to Cask because I think a lot of American beer writers love Green King IPA and Cask, and we're all sat here going, "Really?"
Yeah,
but it's, you know, it's exciting to them. I enjoyed a comment from Adam Mirren, who says, "If 444 makes you burst out like prime Michael Scott when Toby's back in the office, what kind of reaction would you get if you tasted an even worse beer?" So he's referring to the Jupiler, which I gave 444, which was maybe kind. But I don't know. I'd like to ask you about this, Owen. When you're judging beer, because obviously people who are watching or receiving the scores are thinking, what did it get 4 for if it was so rancid you didn't want to put it in your mouth?
Yeah.
But there are sort of technical aspects, like I replied and said, you know, it looks right. It was a clear golden color. It had carbonation and it didn't kill me. Apparently that's enough for 4. Is that the right approach?
Well, like, I mean, you've got two approaches to scoring, haven't you? I'm going to use a football analogy here. You've got like the sort of Irish and English version.
It's refreshing that you can do that because Brad, I'm not sure Brad even knows which limb you use in football.
So traditionally, like if you do like match day ratings, like the Guardian or the Irish Times, you start at 10 and you take points off.
Yep.
Yeah. And most players end up at 5 or 6 if they've had a bad game.
Mm-hmm.
L'Équipe in France, they start at 0 and you have to earn those points. And they will give players 0 or 1 or 2. I think in the World Cup final, one of the players got 2 or 3. I think it was Dembele. He had a shocker of a. I think they pulled him off at halftime. They took him off at halftime.
You didn't need to correct that, but once you did, that's all you. Yeah.
I think he got like a 2 or 3, which seems very like from our sort of milk toasted attitude to judging. That seems very
that's
harsh.
worse than Jupiler.
I would be the same with you. I mean, if it looks good, if it I mean, you're gonna do it on aroma, you're gonna do it on looks, you're gonna do it on taste. I mean, with looks alone, you'd get 5 points. You like because it looks fine, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're gonna get 1 or 2 because it's liquid.
It's not viscous. It's
not exactly. I don't think I've ever given anything below a 10 probably out of 50. So
out of 50,
Judge out of 50, you're talking 10 or 15 out of 50, and that's really like that beer was rancid. Something happened.
Yep. I mean, and it is common in beer judging to have that, and yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever given less than sort of maybe a third mark, so a 3.33, and
yeah, like if that Jupiler had come out of the can brown,
yep,
then yeah, I mean, you're looking at single figures, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you have to work really, really hard to get any lower than 4, really, because it is literally going. It's not really beer at this point. It's not even halfway to being an excellent beer.
Yeah.
But I survived the experience, so it gets some points, Adam. Adam replied, so you'd probably die if you drank a beer rated 111. I think a poisonous beer would get 0.
Yeah, I think if you felt like retching after you've drunk a beer, I think that probably disqualifies it.
So you're retching at 1 and you're dying at 0. That's where the scoring goes. Well, so if you haven't seen that video, the link is obviously in the show notes. I think it's really good fun. It's not performing that well right now, but I think we're going long tail here. I'm hoping that the rest of the world, you know, I'm going to be changing the direction of Dry January forever with this video. And I'm going to buy. Well, I was going to say I'm going to buy shares in the 3 top breweries, but Rot House is owned by the government. Maybe Mash Gang will take some, but Lucky Saint have just got 10 million in funding, I think I saw last week. Oh. So they probably don't need my tiny dividend from Craft Beer Channel. But I'm offering it if you're out there. So that's this week's video. Next week's video, we're going all alcohol and telling the story of one of the most important UK beers ever brewed, and the story of the brewery that buys the most Citra in the UK. Do you know who that is, Owen?
Do I know? I have a fairly reasonable idea, but my limited knowledge of UK brewing, I am familiar with one. You know. That was a very mumbly way of. Are you asking me for the answer, or are you?
I'm asking you for the answer. Yeah.
Oh, Oakham Citra, I assume.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, when we put that out on Twitter, we put that question out a couple of weeks ago, and a couple of people did come back and say Oakham, but a lot of people saying Thornbridge, Brewdog. I think somebody said Colonel, which means they don't quite know how small Colonel still are. But Oakham Citra is the story we're telling next week. It's an epic video about just shy of 30 minutes long. We're telling the story of how Citra first came to the UK, and the story of why Oakham Citra has remained one of the most exciting beers to see on cask. It's a really good episode, I think. And I did most of the camera work. Usually Brad's doing most of the B-roll. Brad had a train nightmare, so I was suddenly thrown into the hot seat. So I hope I've done what is a very unusual brew day. They have about 5 different locations they add the hops. I hope I've done that justice. Well,
people know who to direct their comments to in the...
That's true. I should have said Brad did it all if it's crap. Yeah. Damn it. Owen, before we go, I'd love to hear what you're working on at the moment in the beer world. Give it a plug. Or something you've just finished that's excellent.
I haven't written anything recently. I took a bit of
Brilliant. Well, it's been great to know.
No, if people are interested, I have a book that I self-published in July, which was History of Brussels Beer in 50 Objects. You can buy that on Amazon, very reasonably priced. Someone reviewed it to my face as a great book to read on the toilet.
Oh, come on.
No, but I took that as a positive.
Yeah, that is. Like, yes. Yeah, but it comes up images. If they're looking you dead in the eye and saying,
Well,
That's
no,
uncomfortable.
no, they kind of looked up to the ceiling and said, "I enjoyed it while being on the toilet." So yeah, you can get that on Amazon. Yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff coming up in the new year. Some beer and football writing. I hope to publish. I'm working on an article about a local Brussels brewery, local Brussels football club that is sponsored by Cantillon, actually.
Oh, wow.
And they have a special Cantillon beer in the clubhouse. The clubhouse actually probably has the best beer selection of any football clubhouse.
So it's not like Jupiler or Cantillon. It's got other stuff.
Well, no, it's Jupiler. Yeah. Actually, yeah, it is because it's the Jupiler Pro League. So by rights, they have to sell Jupiler. But they've got Cantillon. You can buy bottles of Iris and Goose from the fridge. And they have a special limited edition beer for the football club that they brew with another local Brussels brewery, Brussels Beer Project, bunch of other brewers, Orval, Saison Dupont, I think. It's just like, I mean, to go to the clubhouse there before the game is, I mean, you're paying €3.50 for a bottle of Orval, and then you're going to watch the football. So it's
pretty amazing. Is
heaven.
The football of a similar quality?
Well, they're second in the league right now.
Which league? Which league?
The Belgian league, sorry.
The top?
The top, the Belgian Premier League. Last season, oh, Johnny, don't get me started. Last season, they came first in the regular season, but there's a playoff system.
Oh.
And then they lost on like the second last day of the season. And they'd only just been promoted last season. So they were promoted, and then immediately they came top of the league. It's just, Sonny, you'll read all about it.
I can't wait.
If I can pull my finger out in the next 3 weeks. And yeah, a bunch of stuff coming up in the year. Some new series around women in Brussels beer and Irish pubs actually will make an appearance. Although the last time I wrote about an Irish pub, I was invited down a dark alley to talk things through with the owner of the pub.
Oh, yikes. What
did you say about the pub that next time you invite me on? Yeah.
What did you say about the pub that elicited that?
I said that it was quiet, and it was quiet.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, an Englishman running an Irish pub, this is what you get. No disrespect.
Oh, God. Never go back to that pub, Owen.
I haven't since the day I wrote it.
There we go. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much. Thank you for being a Patreon.
You're welcome.
Of the channel, and thank you for the lovely writing that you do. If you haven't read anything by Owen, grab the book, check out his writing for on your own blog, plus Good Beer Hunting, and Belgian Smack, and anywhere else you're writing regularly?
Not at the moment, no.
Well, there you go. Go check out there. I'll put a link to at least your Good Beer Hunting profile in the show notes as well.
I hope I didn't geek out. I hope I didn't fanboy out too much this evening. I mean, I do listen regularly. I love it. If you're not a Patreon,
I don't think you fanboyed enough, Owen.
If you're not a Patreon, you should absolutely be a Patreon. And the next time you come to Belgium, you can repay me some of those Patreon euros in a couple of beers. How does that sound?
It might get you one beer. We'll see. We'll see. Well, thanks so much, Owen. Brad will be back next week. And we're headed to Belgium, hopefully in February. So maybe we can do a follow-up episode with you while we're over then.
Great.
Alrighty. Much love to you and to everyone out there loving beer. The Bubble and Friday 5pm podcasts are brought to you by the nerds behind YouTube's craft beer channel. You can watch over 400 mini documentaries at youtube.com/the craft beer channel. And if you love what we do, support us via Patreon and get access to merchandise and our amazing Discord forum, a positive and welcoming space for everyone who loves beer, food and homebrewing. Love and beer.